pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I would like to start by asking Ms. Fagora to take the roll call.
Mr. Ballas?
Here.
Ms. Semino?
Here.
Dr. Downey? Dr. Downey?
Michelle, you're on mute.
Dr. Downey?
I think she's having trouble with her audio because she's not muted right now. Why don't we continue the roll call and come back to Michelle?
Dr. Huff?
Here.
Mr. Cutis?
Here.
Mrs. Lentz?
Here.
Mr. Sullivan?
Here.
Mrs. Walkman?
Here.
Dr. Grandy?
Here.
Mr. Berman?
Here.
Dr. Palmer?
Here.
Ms. Patel?
Here.
Dr. Downey?
I think Dr. Downey is having trouble hearing
Here.
us. Oh, there we go.
All right, we
Can
have,
you hear me?
yes,
Yes, we got you now.
9 voting members present.
All right, thank you, Ms. Fagora. Before we start with our student representatives report, which we'll move to in just a moment, I just want to say a few quick words to kick us off this evening. First, I want to thank everyone in the district for all of the hard work at bringing our elementary students back full-time last week. I heard a lot of stories of very excited kids going back to school. A lot of them, I think, felt like it was the first day of school. It was an important milestone for our district and our students. And in 3 weeks, we'll do the same for our middle school and high school. And I know those students are just as excited. This is also our last board meeting before spring break. I hope all of our district families have a wonderful break. It's been a long year, and I know many are starting to feel the optimism and hope of spring as the weather warms, and with more and more members of our community starting to get vaccinated, including our own teachers, which is welcome news. While we want to say goodbye to COVID, I hate to say it, but we can't do that quite yet. I hope that our families have an opportunity to enjoy the upcoming break, but I also would ask that all of you help us keep our schools safe. We know COVID rates are rising again in surrounding states and other parts of the country. Variants are more common and can spread more easily. It is too soon to abandon our safe practices. So if you travel, please, please, please continue all the same precautions we have been practicing all winter and consider getting a test when you return. Now that the weather is warming, help our kids avoid COVID exposures by keeping activities outdoors and of course, keep on masking. We've come a long way over the course of this school year, and we are certainly getting closer to resuming some of our normal activities, but we are not yet through this. And so please do everything you can to help keep our schools safe and keep our schools open. And I do hope that everyone does get a chance to have some relaxation with their families over the spring break. So that takes us to our student representatives report. I'll turn things over to Ms. Patel.
Thanks, Dr. Grandy. At SRS, Excellent Adventure is a new home and school event and part of our SRS Care celebration. Its goal is to get students outside and moving this spring and raise funds for the Boys and Girls Club of Chester and the SRS Sparrow House renovation. It incorporates 5K courses and scavenger hunts across all 4 neighborhoods that comprise this SRS community. SRS Home and School provides the maps and scavenger lists, and you can choose your own adventure. SRS Excellent Adventure takes place from April 10th and 30th, and SRS students should consider getting involved. Those who register by March 31st also score a new bandana. In addition to supporting the SRS community, the SRS Home and School also strives to offer support to our larger community and to foster opportunities for kids to do the same. SRS Home and School, as part of our Dimensions in Service and Civics programming, has been compiling a list of local organizations, charities, and service projects that can use help from the SRS community, including hands-on help from students. The list is now on the Home and School website, so that families looking to volunteer on their own can also draw from the list. Also, there are still ongoing supply collections for the Foundry Church in Wallingford, as well as the Boys and Girls Club of Chester. These are some easy ways to give back this spring. At NPE, students and staff were excited for their return to full in-person instruction last week. Principal Heinley reports that there was an atmosphere filled with smiles and excitement in the hallways as all of the students returned together last Thursday. Students in cohorts A and B had the opportunity to see all of their classmates in person for the first time this school year, making the day extra exciting. The NPE staff is busily preparing for the upcoming parent-teacher conferences, which will be held later this week. All conferences will be conducted virtually, and if a family still needs to sign up, they can reach out to their child's teacher to arrange a time for a conference. Students and staff at Wssd were also thrilled about their new return to school, and the school welcomed back over 400 students to in-person learning on March 18th. Principal Savage thanks the PBIS team, who prepared lessons on how to be safe, respectful, and responsible using our new safety protocols and procedures. Moreover, Principal Savage reports that breaks and snack and lunch periods are all running smoothly thanks to the hard work of the students and staff at Wssd. He also gives a special shout out to Wssd families for their patience at the car line over the first few days of school. So far, so good. Finally, Wssd will also be having parent-teacher conferences for all elementary students on Thursday and Friday this week. Please reach out to your child's teacher to sign up for a time slot. While students at Strathaven are excited to finish up this last week of school before spring break, they also can't wait for the upcoming events planned by different organizations at our school. Students are expected to return to school in the new model on April 12th, but before that, the Student Council at Haven is hosting a safe, socially distanced movie night for all 4 grade levels. Tentative dates are April 9th, 10th, and 11th, and students can use their grade level Google Classrooms to access the form and indicate their interest in attending. Plans are subject to change in the interest of safety, but this event will be a fun way for students to connect before the start of the 4th quarter. Also, Haven will be having another coffee house on April 21st at 1 p.m. Students are free to perform music, dance, drums, and poetry, and they can just watch and enjoy their peers and teachers' performances. Thank you, that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Patel. So next up, we have the superintendent's report, Dr. Palmer.
Thank you, Dr. Grandy. And I have a number of items to report on this evening. The first, the DCIU held the first Delaware County Student Forum on March 18th. This is part of the work that the DCIU has engaged in with school districts when the Delco Equity Coalition was launched this year. Dr. Mundy, who is spearheading the initiative from the IU, stated that the Delco Equity Coalition grew from conversations happening in school districts on diversity, equity, and inclusion. The Student Forum evolved from the desire and need identified by all educators and administrators for student voice and agency on these topics. The Student Forum is geared for students in grades 10 and 11 to ensure continuity through the upcoming years. Angeli Robinson-Leary and Isa Takone were the Wallingford-Swarthmore student representatives to the Student Forum, and Dr. Ashwina Mosakowski has been attending the Delco Equity Coalition since its inception. Dr. Mosakowski helped with the planning of the Student Forum that was held on March 18th. First on the agenda was a message from the superintendents of Delaware County School Districts. I and my colleague superintendents welcomed all participants to the forum, explained what equity meant to us personally, why equity is important, and how it is envisioned in the Wallingford-Swarthmore School District. There were 2 breakout sessions moderated by the DCIU and school district staff, where students had the opportunity to interact with students from other school districts. In the first breakout session, students interviewed each other, and when all participants were back together, they introduced each other. In the second breakout session, students brainstormed words they associate with equity and they found an image that expresses their understanding of equity. They also came up with a hashtag name that represents the goal for equity work in their schools. The next student forum will be held on April 20th. Staying with the theme of diversity, equity, and inclusion, I'd like to highlight the WSSD DEI Student Design Contest. WSSD students in grades K-12 are invited to participate in a contest to create a logo and/or a catchphrase to help promote diversity, equity, and inclusion in our schools and our community. The DEI Action Committee is excited to have student representatives on our committee and is looking for more ways to involve student voices. We would love to hear from our talented artists, writers, designers, and visionaries. The winning creations will be used district-wide to help promote the values, mission, and goals of the DEI Committee and WSSD. They will be featured on the district website and in other ways, and the winners of each category will receive a prize. So students can submit one or both of the following: a logo, which is a design, drawing, or an image that can inspire our community and will be recognizable as a symbol of DEI in our district and the community. Or a catchphrase, which is a tagline, a sentence, or a phrase that can complement the logo. You can go to our website on the DEI webpage for more information and learn how you can submit your entry. Please note that our deadline has now been extended to Friday, April 9th. And everyone who has already submitted their entry, thank you very much. On a different topic, I'd like to update our community regarding litigation brought against the school district by one of our neighbors. On April 14th, a hearing on the permanent injunction sought by that Copples Lane neighbor related to the school district's use of the King Field Athletic Complex will start. Although we have tried for years to accommodate this neighbor, the neighbor continues to press claims that our athletic and band activities violate Pennsylvania law related to trespass and nuisance and local ordinances. We continue to believe our curricular and extracurricular programming at King Field remains in full compliance with all state and local law, as it has for the past almost 40 years. In short, this neighbor seeks to end or severely limit our lighted spectator events, including football and marching band on Friday evenings, as well as other evening sports and band activities, as well as non-school organizations' use of the field. We were previously prepared to go forward on this matter a year ago, and were literally sitting in the courtroom to do so as our neighbor moved for a continuance. We remain prepared to defend in court our uses of our field, and will be doing so starting on April 14th. We anticipate that our presentation will include our athletic director, Pat Clancy, our assistant band director, Henry Proberg, Nether Providence Police Chief Dave Splain, and me. On Friday night, our Friday night marching band and football at King Field, as well as other community uses of our field, remains a key feature of the fabric of our local community, and we will vigorously and appropriately work to ensure it continues. And finally, next week, March 29th to April 2nd will be spring break. And I mentioned this to you for two reasons. First, to remind you that there will be no school, although I anticipate that your children will remind you that there will be no school. And secondly, we ask you to remain COVID vigilant, as you may be gathering with your extended family or traveling during the break. COVID-19 is far from over, and we cannot let our guard down, as Dr. Grandy said. We ask you to wear a mask, practice good hygiene, avoid crowds, and physically distance to the greatest extent possible. Your health, and when your children return to school, our health all depends on it. Dr. Grandy, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Palmer. So that takes me to board announcements. I have two announcements. The first, as we've been doing at the meetings, I just want to provide a quick update on the superintendent search process. This will be a slightly longer update, but just a quick summary of where we've been and where we anticipate to be going. For the past 4 months, the board has been fully engaged in the search process for the district's next superintendent. This comprehensive process has led us to an anticipated appointment of our new leader at the April 12th school board meeting. The process components for input along the way have included surveys of parents, employees, and community members, including community members without children in our schools, with about 2,800 responses from various individuals, 2 community forums, 1 staff forum, and more than 3 dozen one-on-one interviews by our search consultant with administrators, board members, and district leaders. The search and interview process included a period of heavy recruitment and outreach, screening of more than 30 formal applicants, first round interviews with 12 candidates, second round interviews and writing samples with 5 candidates, and third round interviews and presentations with 3 finalists. The topics for all 3 rounds of interview questions, writing samples, and presentations were drawn directly from the input provided by faculty, parents, administrators, support staff, and community members. And while there were many hopes and expectations shared with the board via surveys, forums, and interviews, the most prevalent and pressing themes were, and these aren't in any particular order, in terms of what people were emphasizing, wanting an educator and someone who understands the art and science of teaching and learning, a systems thinker who can maximize talents and resources of our K-12 community and create a shared vision, an excellent communicator, transparent leader, student-centered leader who builds solid relationships with staff, leader committed to the district's work on diversity, equity, and inclusion, a builder of trust and confidence in the district, a leader who will embrace the Wallingford-Swarthmore family and take joy from being in the classrooms and schools, a leader who will look forward to build capacity for all through learning, innovation, and planning. All 9 board members have been fully engaged throughout this journey, and we had a deep and robust pool of applicants and a set of finalists who brought great talent and experience to the table. As I mentioned, we're in the last stage of the process and look forward to a public announcement at our April 12th board meeting and a start date, as I've mentioned, for the new superintendent on July 1st. I am going to ask Ms. Fagora to just, afterwards, I'll just provide you a copy of some of these comments so that we can enter them into the minutes. I do have a slightly longer attachment with some of the report that was prepared by the search consultant with a more thorough outlining of the input from all the surveys, and we'll just include that with the minutes from this meeting so people can have access to that. My second announcement is that the board met in executive session prior to this meeting to discuss personnel negotiations, and also on March 18th to discuss issues related to administrator compensation. So that takes us to our time on the agenda for our focus topic, of which we have 1 tonight. And I'll ask Dr. Palmer to introduce the topic and our speaker.
Thank you, Dr. Grandy. This evening, Dr. Grandy mentioned that we have had our elementary students come back to school, and we are actively planning for our high school and our middle school students to come back on April 12th. But during the same time, we're already looking ahead toward the summer and the next school year. This evening, Dr. Ashwina Mosakowski will be presenting what we're considering for our elementary students for our summer program that we've not offered before. The summer program would be our Community of Explorers, and she is now at the podium, and I'm going to let her take it away.
Good evening. We were brainstorming in the curriculum office about what we can offer to our students.
Having difficulty hearing you.
Now? Okay. So good evening. We were brainstorming in the curriculum office about ways that we can help our younger learners, because we know this has been a very atypical year for all of our learners across board. And we are very proud and impressed of how everybody has rose up to the challenge and have, done the best that they can. But we also recognize that especially our younger learners need some additional practice, especially with the essential skills that, they've been doing this year, and just some review and maintaining of those skills. So we are going to offer what we're going to be calling the Community of Explorers. And this is some of the information from the program. We are offering 2 sessions that are in person, Monday through Thursday, from July 12th to the 23rd. And this is offered to students grades K through 4, which means rising grades, those that are entering those grades. Students have a choice to attend 1 or both sessions. ELA will be from 8:30 to 11:30 in the morning, and math will be from 12:30 to 3:30 p.m. Students who decide to attend full day will be provided lunch at no cost, and transportation is also included in the program, including those students that want to leave midday. So that transportation will be available there too. We are choosing to hold this session, this program at Wssd because they have a playground, and we figured, with lunch, we can also offer recess. The details of the program is really like, as I said, we really want to make sure that they are reviewing and practicing those essential skills, those foundational skills that they need for this year, that they've been taught this year, but that we really need to reinforce. We also want students to have fun because this year has really been a challenging year, and to have some social interactions in a safe environment. And we also want to stay focused on the curriculum. Registration information, the flyers will be available to parents on parent-teacher conference days. The link will be embedded in the flyer, as well as a QR code that parents can scan and they can register there. Principals will include the flyer in the e-blast, and the information will be posted on the website. Registration will be from March 29th to May 12th, and there will be a parent information session on July 8th. So this in a nutshell, this is the program that we have created. 2 weeks, 2 sessions, ELA and math. Thank you.
Questions from board members? Oh, did you? Go for it.
Dr. Moskowski, thank you so much
Thank you.
for presenting this tonight. One question that comes to mind right away, in terms of who's teaching it, will it be our own teachers who are staffing this year?
Yes, we are posting for teachers, and we are posting for a director for the program. And Berg has told me that we can also posting for aides. So I'm hoping, because of the lunches and arrival and dismissal and bus, so we are hoping to have aides, teachers, and a director for the program.
Terrific. And is it available in person only?
At this time,
Okay.
yes, it is available in person. We really want the face-to-face time for the students. We will maintain all the safety protocols, but we really want students to be in person.
Thank you.
So when you say grades K to 4, you mean current grades K to 4?
Yes,
Not
so
rising
they're-
into.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Got it. Other questions? Jen?
Hi. So for parents that are hearing about this new program and they're not sure if their child is a child that should be attending a program like this, what do you recommend they do to find out if this would be a good fit for their child?
They can contact me, or they can contact the principal, but really this is open to all students,
Okay.
all students.
Right. No, I understand that it's open to everyone, but for the parents that are kind of hearing this and assessing, well, should I do this? I'm not sure. I didn't think I should, but now that it's being offered, perhaps I
Yeah.
should do this. I'm wondering how, I guess talking to their teachers as well would help
Yes.
them to make those decisions, because I know the flyer is available at the conferences.
At the conferences, the flyers will be available. Teachers are aware of the program, principals are
Okay.
aware of the program, and teachers will be able to explain the program. And I
Okay.
will provide additional information to the teachers to explain the program.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Matt?
I didn't see anything on this about the cost. What is the cost to students?
We got lucky. There is no cost this year for
Great.
students.
And what's the cost to the district?
The teachers. Dr. Palmer will be able to answer that better than me. The
Dr.
teacher
Mosick,
salaries,
And have you worked out what the cost would be to the district?
just the teacher salary and the transportation. I've spoken to the transportation department.
But you
So
don't have that with you
I don't
this
have that
evening?
with me right
Okay, in terms of formal proposal for this, Mr. Sullivan, we anticipate bringing this back at the April meeting so the board could see exactly what's involved with this.
Great.
Others? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. That takes us to our first audience recognition time for response to items for action on the agenda. And as a reminder, public comment is a time for district residents and taxpayers to speak to the board about an issue that is before the board or may come before the board. It is a time for us to listen and hear perspectives and experiences from our community. And while we can't answer questions at the meeting, there's always an opportunity to follow up after meetings if there's a specific question for the district. We continue to have two methods to comment: in person and by phone. For members of the public wishing to address in person, we have space in the room as well as overflow space if needed. And when it's time to speak, we'll ask audience members to be guided up to the podium, and everyone must wear a mask at all times. Members of the public wishing to address the board can also call 610-892-3470 extension 1102 to leave a recorded comment for the board subject to a 3-minute time limit. Any comments left prior to 5 o'clock on the day of our meetings are transcribed and made available to the board. Anything left after 5 o'clock prior to the end of the meeting will still be transcribed, distributed to the board, and made a part of the record, but not acknowledged during the meeting. And as indicated on the agenda, we've allocated up to 1 hour and 15 minutes during this portion of the meeting for topics on the agenda, and later on during the meeting, a half hour during the portion set aside for topics not on the agenda, just in the interest of maintaining an orderly and efficient meeting. And we'll allow 3 minutes per comment in the interest of always giving as many people as possible the chance to be heard. And we'll alternate between in-person and phoned-in comments. Is there any, I don't think we have any phoned-in comments for anything on the agenda, correct? Just for an item. Is there anyone who has a comment they would like to make for an item on the agenda? So if you could just go through that door and you can walk up that hallway there. So that would come later. Yeah. Yep.
Your street.
Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Just state your name for everyone watching, as well as your street.
My name is Henry Stockman, South Chester Road.
Okay, the podium is yours.
I'm here to ask you to please delay voting on adopting the new schedule until more data can be made available on it. I am not aware that there's publicly available survey data on whether students and staff and parents prefer the current hybrid model or the proposed in-person model. I understand that there was a survey conducted earlier for people to determine whether they wanted to stay on the online model or go in person, but that was not directly comparing the current hybrid model with the proposed in-person model. I've attempted to try to create a survey for all the students to participate in, but there has not been enough time for me to complete that survey. When I do complete that survey, I will share the results with you guys. I think it's important that all invested parties be given the opportunity to speak on the matter of which schedule we are to adopt. I'm asking that you guys also please conduct a survey for the parents and the students and the teachers and the administrators, and that you grant the teachers and students anonymity so that they may speak freely without fear of repercussions. And then after that survey, if you could make the results of that survey publicly available so that everyone can see the feedback that was done for it, or sorry, the feedback that was done on the in-person schedule. Then I think, you guys can look at that survey and then do what you think is best. I think it is, because the students and the teachers are the ones in the classroom, I think it's really important that they are given a voice and they are allowed to say directly between these two, the hybrid model, which they're currently in, and the model that we're going to, which one they prefer. And that because the earlier survey that was done was sort of phrased in such a way that people thought if they said they were going to pick online, they would be forced to commit to that decision. I think it may have potentially inflated the numbers of in-person people who now are reconsidering whether they're actually going to go in person. I know many people who I have talked to already do not want to return to the in-person school, and they are currently in the hybrid model, and they will leave. I understand that is anecdotal, and that please conduct a survey to figure out whether that is just a few outliers or whether that is a general trend. If that is a trend, I think it would be preferable to stay in the current hybrid model where you have as many students as possible in the classrooms, learning in the way that they're most comfortable with at this time. Thank you very much for keeping an open mind on this, and please get more data before you go forward with the decision, because if it's wrong, it'll be very costly to all of us. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. And just a quick thing, just to let you know, so we don't actually have anything on the agenda this evening.
Oh, I'm very sorry.
No, I wasn't, that's not what I was saying. I was just to clarify. The board has taken action already, and the administration is implementing currently. So it's certainly, and I appreciate your comments to the board for sure. But another option available if you have concerns is to also contact the high school administration directly. But we'll certainly take into consideration your
All
comments
right,
this
thank
evening.
you very much.
Yep, thank you. Is there someone else in the hallway? Or was there anyone else for an item on the agenda?
I'm also speaking regarding the new schedule. Is it best that I contact my school, or would you guys like to?
It's up to you. You're welcome. You're certainly welcome to speak to the board this evening. If you don't mind just holding it for right now, just because we're not actually voting on that this evening.
Of course, yeah, thank you.
Great, thank you. Is there anyone else in the hall? Okay. All right, so that takes us to our first item for action, which is the approval of the March 8th regular business meeting minutes, and I so move. Do we have a second?
Second?
Thank you, Kelly. Any discussion? Okay, Ms. Fagora, can you please take a roll call vote?
Mr. Ballas,
Aye.
Ms. Semino,
Aye.
Dr. Downey,
Aye.
Dr. Huff,
Aye.
Mr. Cudis,
Aye.
Mrs. Lentz,
Aye.
Mr. Sullivan,
Aye.
Mrs. Walkman,
Aye.
Dr. Grandy.
Aye.
The motion passes 9-0.
All right, thank you, Ms. Fagora. So that takes us to personnel. We have 9 items for action. Are there any on the list anyone would like to separate from the rest? Okay. First, we have the approval of 3 retirements. Anna Marie Finley, special education teacher at NPE. Laura Dubrow, home and school visitor and social worker. And Norma Long, executive administrative assistant at Wes. We have the approval of 3 resignations: Mark Kehoe, substitute bus driver, Marvella Lopez, substitute bus driver, and Vincent Shakora, building substitute teacher at Wes. We have the approval of 1 appointment, Kira Brown, Spanish teacher at the middle school. We have the approval of 5 leaves of absence as listed in the agenda. We have the approval of 1 change of salary status as listed in the agenda. With the approval of an addition to the 2020-2021 activities supplemental appointment list as stipulated. We have the approval of 1 change of assignment for the 2021-2022 school year as noted in the agenda. We have the approval of additions to the 2020-2021 spring athletic supplementals as stipulated. And we have the approval of 1 conference request for the 2021-2022 conference request list as stipulated. And all items in this section are as attached or described in the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Jerry. We have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Larry. Any discussion? Okay, Ms. Fagora, can you take a roll call vote?
Ms. Semino,
Aye.
Dr. Downey,
Aye.
Dr. Huff,
Aye.
Mr. Cudis,
Aye.
Mrs. Lentz,
Aye.
Mr. Sullivan,
Aye.
Mrs. Walkman,
Aye.
Mr. Ballas,
Aye.
Dr. Grandy.
Aye.
Motion passes 9-0.
All right, that takes us to curriculum. We have 6 items for action in curriculum. Are there any items anyone would like to separate? Okay. First, we have approval of the 2020-2021 related services provider contracts as stipulated. We have the approval of an educational services agreement as listed in the agenda under item B, similarly for item C, and similarly for item D. We have approval of the revised 2021-2022 school year calendar, which makes only one change, which is movement of the observed July 4th holiday from July 1st to July 5th to be consistent with the federal holiday observed schedule. And we have the approval of a professional services agreement with Effective School Solutions to provide specialized clinical therapeutic services for the period July 1, 2021 to June 30th, 2022, in the amounts listed in the agenda. These items are as attached or described in the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Kelly. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Jerry. Any discussion? Okay, Ms. Fagora, can you take a roll call vote?
Dr. Downey,
Aye.
Dr. Huff,
Aye.
Mr. Cutis,
Aye.
Mrs. Lentz,
Aye.
Mr. Sullivan,
Aye.
Mrs. Walkman,
Aye.
Mr. Ballas,
Aye.
Ms. Semino,
Aye.
Dr. Grandy.
Aye.
The curriculum items pass 9-0.
Thank you, Ms. Fagora. So that takes us on to finance. We have 11 items for approval in finance. Are there any on the list anyone would like to separate from the rest? Okay. We have approval of payment of invoices to vendors from February 17th, 2021 to March 16th, 2021. We have acknowledgement of the receipt of financial statements as outlined in the agenda for February 2021. We have approval of the treasurer's report for February 2021. We have approval of the 2020-2021 budget transfers as stipulated. We have approval of the DCIU general operating budget for the 2021-2022 school year as stipulated. We have approval of the Delaware County Technical Schools budget resolution for the 2021-2022 school year as stipulated. We have approval of the DCIU Special Education Funding and Service Agreement for the 2021-2022 school year as stipulated. We have approval of the interim agreement with the Pennsylvania Association of School Business Officials at the rate of $75 per hour, not to exceed $40,000 to provide support to the business office due to a family medical leave. We have approval of the E+ quote for the purchase of the wireless access points contingent on receipt of E-rate funding and inclusion in the 2021-2022 district budget as stipulated. We have approval of the Rico USA lease proposal as stipulated. And we have authorization for the board president to execute a letter of support for the Delaware County Community College Redevelopment Assistance Capital Program. All items in this section are as attached or described in the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Larry. Do I have a second?
Second.
Kelly. Any discussion? Okay, Ms. Fagora, can you take a roll call vote?
Dr. Huff,
Aye.
Mr. Cutis,
Aye.
Mrs. Lentz,
Aye.
Mr. Sullivan,
Aye.
Mrs. Walkman,
Aye.
Mr. Ballas,
Aye.
Ms. Semino,
Aye.
Dr. Downey,
Aye.
Dr. Grandy.
Aye.
The finance items pass 9-0.
Thank you, Ms. Fagora. So that does take us now to the time for audience recognition for response to topics not on the agenda. So I won't reread the long description since it wasn't that long ago. But I know there's at least a couple in the audience that want to comment. And then in between those comments, we'll mix in one called in comment that we have. So. All right, good evening. So
Good
just
evening.
Name and street, and then podium's yours.
Joan O'Brien, Christian Lane in Wallingford. Thank you for your time this evening. Let me begin by saying that I do appreciate the time, the effort, and the expense that goes into bringing our kids back to school for in-person learning. I work in a school that has been in person full-time 5 days since September 8th, and I know firsthand the challenges that are involved. Although my school population is small compared to the high school, we have multiple classrooms with 20+ students. We've had to deal with the same difficulties and complications that the district has in bringing the kids into the building and keeping everyone safe. It is working. We are making it work. I have been very vocal over the school year about multiple aspects of the former and current hybrid schedule for the high school. And like many, I was thrilled to hear 2 weeks ago about plans to open the high school to full in-person on April 12th. However, after seeing the schedule that was released on Thursday, I could barely contain my disappointment and frustration. I have 2 major objections with the proposed schedule. The first being lunch. I don't understand how the district cannot figure out how to offer lunch to our high school students. I think if you do the research, most districts in our area are offering their students an in-person schedule that includes lunch, and many of these districts have more students than we do. Why can't the students be spaced out in the cafeteria, the auditorium, the library, and the gym? The weather is improving, spring is here. Can the kids eat outside? Is that an option for them? I believe it is Mr. King's intention to utilize the gym for the middle school lunches. I think he mentioned this in the last board meeting a few weeks ago. Can the district implement 4 lunch periods instead of the 3 that they've had in previous years? Can the students eat in their classrooms during either second or third block? By not offering lunch, we are denying our students the social interaction that would take place during lunch, interaction that many of these kids have been lacking for months. One of my second issue, and it has been an issue since the beginning of the school year, is the Asynchronous Wednesdays. Throughout this year, I have been especially critical of Asynchronous Wednesday. It's disheartening that the district is not more concerned about the loss of instruction with the hybrid schedule. Now that we're bringing the students back into the building full-time, you are continuing to reduce their academic instruction hours by delaying the school day start and reducing the block time to 65 minutes. The new plan also still includes a half day of asynchronous on Wednesdays devoted to clubs and meetings. I've struggled with this decision since the beginning of the school year. Clubs should be after-school activities. They should not replace 2 full blocks of instruction every Wednesday. So then why, when teachers still have this half day of asynchronous learning on Wednesdays in the new schedule that was proposed last week, why they need meeting and planning for an hour and a half every morning? The kids don't start school until 9:15 with this schedule that's being proposed. I'm not really sure why we need all this meeting and planning time in the morning. Certainly by this stage in the school year, the teachers should be familiar with the schedules. I know that this was a huge action to start school in the midst of a pandemic, but by now, I feel like the schedule should be set and teachers should know what to do. Finally, I'm baffled by the fact that the district is choosing now in the middle of the school year, when our children have lost countless hours of instruction, to implement the delayed start because of the findings of a sleep study conducted, I'm not even 2 years ago, I can't remember exactly when. I don't think this is the time to do it. I think the kids need to be back in school for a full day. It seems to me that from the beginning of this school year, the district has not always put the needs of our high school students first when implementing the hybrid schedules. I ask that you reconsider this proposed return to in-person model and give these kids, you have the opportunity to give these kids some semblance of normalcy for the remainder of the school year. You can bring these students back for a real full day, and please try and figure out lunch for them. Thank you for your consideration. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Kelly, do you want to go ahead and read the called-in comment while we wait for our next speaker?
This is from Eve Buckley, South Chester Road in Swarthmore. I have 3 children in the district, 2 in the high school. I have 2 concerns about the proposed high school return to school plan, which was announced recently. One is, I'm curious whether the board has any idea how families feel now that we have an actual plan in front of us. How families feel about this arrangement versus the current hybrid model. I have to say, for my family, the hybrid model has worked quite well. We were willing to go in fully in person, but the plan that involves 5 hours or something like that without a normal lunch break is pretty unappealing. So it would be very useful to have a clear comparison between these 2 actual plans now that there's more detail, and to see what the community feels about that. Secondly, I just want to note a lot of high school students have various nutritional issues that are part of their health. I certainly have one for whom, trying to get this child to regularly eat 3 meals is a very important part of their health regimen. So going into a schedule that's not really allowing for any normal sort of lunch schedule jeopardizes a lot of progress that we've been trying to make. I don't think that's unusual for teenagers, so I hope the board will take that into consideration. We're also concerned about the teachers not having a reasonable lunch break, but for a lot of students, it's just not particularly healthy. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Do we have another speaker? Hi, good evening. If you could just state your name and your street.
Hi, I'm Olivia Fox. I'm a senior at the high school. I live on Yale Avenue in Swarthmore. I just wanted to share with you guys real quickly my experience with online school as of now. I am in the marching band, symphonic band, and I play lacrosse and frisbee at the high school. There's a lot of other students who participate in 5th block activities and who have sports after school, specifically track. As of now, if your student is enrolled in some sort of 5th block activity and does track, they will have no time to get a good meal in. Yes, this 10-minute wellness break will be time for a snack, but it's not enough time for them to get an entire meal. And eating before track, maybe during 5th block, is still not a valuable option if they have to play an instrument or sing in the choir. The last thing I wanted to bring up is the students' mental health. There is no way our students are prepared to sit through all 4 blocks with simply a 10-minute wellness break. As of now, my lunch breaks are not just lunch breaks. I have time to meet with my teachers if they're busy during 5th block. I also have time to work on homework. Please reconsider this decision. Thank you.
Thank you. We have any other speakers? Okay. So thank you to those who came out to speak tonight. We certainly heard what you have to say and may take that up in the future. But I would also encourage individuals to reach out to the high school administration as well if you have concerns. So that takes us to school board reports as our next item on the agenda. Does anyone have a report from a district subcommittee or out of district role?
Yes, I have a report for the subcommittee.
Okay, thanks, Jerry.
Last week we had a meeting with the Big Idea Leadership Group. This was our 3rd meeting with the group. We've met regularly with them since they are pursuing some of the same goals and objectives that we are, and are working together to help one another move things forward. Discussed a number of topics. We discussed a Zoom incident that occurred a couple of weeks ago, and they voiced the desire for greater transparency, more details, and prompter and broader communications of these type of incidents and hate incidents in general. Well, we had a very good discussion on it. I think they had some very good perspectives. We had some information regarding our legal responsibilities. And I think both of us came out with some better understanding. And certainly we'll consider their thoughts and as we move forward. We talked about the where we are with the equity audit and what our next steps will be. We discussed Black Lives Matters at school day, and we're pleased that it took place. But there's a general desire for feedback, more to understand what went well, what did not go well, and how can we learn from it and do it better. They provided some feedback from some students, and the administration will pursue feedback from teachers to get that information so can we better prepare for next year. We had a discussion about an idea of having a workshop in elementary schools on the topic of how to talk to kids about race. And both groups felt that was a worthwhile endeavor. The Big Idea Group expressing the desire to co-sponsor such a workshop. And we will work with the DEI Action Committee, which we are meeting with on Wednesday of this week, about how we might move this forward. That's it. Thank you.
Great, thank you for that update. Any other reports on district subcommittees or out of district roles? Okay, I'll just mention PSBA had organized today a virtual advocacy day. And so there was some meetings set up with representatives and state senators from the area. So I was able to participate in a discussion with the state senators today representing Delaware County and had some useful conversations about some of the challenges facing public schools. But that's all I have. Anyone else? Okay. Do we have any old business?
I have a question.
Sure.
So it is really exciting that many of the elementary students have returned to the buildings this week. And I wanted to ask the administration if the numbers of students that we expected to remain in the online academy, if that number stayed the same or if it changed one way or the other, and approximately what fraction of the elementary students are in the online academy.
Dr. Huff, I don't have the specific numbers with me, but what was presented initially at our focus topic, we are pretty close to what we have. There was some fluctuation both ways and a few more children were added, but for the most part, they are what you saw. And one way to express what the numbers are is we do have 4 elementary schools, and I believe our largest elementary school is still the online academy, but I don't know the specific numbers off the top of my head.
So it's at least more than 25% of the elementary students are participating online.
Correct.
Thank you very much.
All right, any other old business? Any new business? All right,